I'm going to talk about Chronolog. Um, their little tagline is time lapses powered by citizen science. And I believe this is run out of Georgetown University. There's a person down there that reached out to a few of us actually recently about just kind of promoting this tool. And I know, and we actually have one in the Hudson River, which I'll talk about in a second. So I'm located, I'm the Hudson Estuary Resilience Specialist. I do climate change adaptation stuff. And I just wanted to acknowledge really quick that there's a ton of community science going on here already. I personally don't have a lot of experience with it, but I'm excited that there's so many partners that I can like reach out to. So we have an American eel monitoring program that's really huge. We have this day in the life of the harbor where people go out to collect water quality information. Riverkeeper has a water quality monitoring program that's plugged in with a bunch of different water labs at different universities up and down the river. And we have like, you know, amphibian crossing and that type of thing. So I just wanted to acknowledge that these programs are like very well coordinated, very well established, and like highly successful. The people that run the American Eel Research Program are also at the Research Reserve, and they also have this Chronolog program. And I was just out at the Research Reserve for like a meeting one day, and I was taking a little walk on my lunch break and noticed this stand there, and I happened to take a picture of it, which was kind of cool because when this project came together, I was like, oh yeah, we have one of those. But anyways, all you do is place a bracket somewhere in this sign, which they make for you, and then you can take a photo, and then you email the photo based on the email address that they provide on the sign, and then you can go to the website and see your time-lapse photo. So at the Research Reserve, if you go to the website, this is what you see looking out from their deck. There's this kind of like embayment here, and it's just a time-lapse video on the website, and you can pause it and download pictures. And then that was like the upper portion of the website. And then there's just a little spot for a brief description. And then the Chronolog website itself shows you everywhere else there's Chronolog stations. So I just took a screenshot of where else in the Northeast has this tool. So I called up Maya, who runs the Chronolog site, and just asked her some questions. They started this in 2019, so they're currently in their second year. And their goal was to monitor change in water chestnut phenology. So when it fills in and washes away seasonally, it's a really big problem on the Hudson and invasive species. It just takes over in certain places on the river. And they also use it for monitoring ice cover. So like how many days that occurs. The people that are engaged are any visitors to Norrie Point that happen to walk by it on any day, kind of like I did that one time. Sometimes when they have classes out, they'll project the time lapse onto a big screen. There's also student researchers out there in the summer that have done work using the time lapse. But most of the photos come from staff that work there every day. And she just noted that, yeah, regular volunteers really are needed to make it a consistent data set. I asked her like what her hopes were for it. And, you know, she'd like to see more sites along the Hudson just because it's such a dynamic environment and more people using it. But the big thing about this tool is that it's $200 a year and basically no maintenance. It's just so easy. All she had to do was watch like a 10-minute video for how to mount the platform. So there's very little training involved. It's like, you know, all up and down the Eastern Seaboard. So that's a cool part of it. And it's just a really good way to collect qualitative data, and it's good for distance learning. One of my main partners out here for resilience work is Scenic Hudson, who also is, you know, really into conservation. And they have several sites along the river. And And they are actually installing a station to monitor the shoreline at Ramshorn. And they're also really excited about this, doing like an actual, like the flood monitoring that I'm more interested in for, you know, high tide flooding and resilience. But because it's so low cost and it's so easy to maintain, they were like, well, we're just going to put this one here and see how it goes. So I'll be interested to see how that works for monitoring their shoreline at Ramshorn. So I think that's all I had. Yep.
Okay, great. Whoops, this is touchy. All right. This is Sensing Storm Surge. This is a project that was developed in, I think, 2016 and really started in 2017. It's been really very research-based, but it's a citizen science program as well. So there's a lot of researchers involved and a lot of students from University of Maine. And you all know what storm surge is, but and I'm going to go to the next slide to talk about the goals. So they wanted to, their goals to for this project is to develop a better understanding of storm surge behavior in 4 main estuaries, to engage the local residents in data gathering using various training methods, and to evaluate the citizen science effort by measuring the data reliability. And participant engagement. So these are the major folks involved, Kim Huguenot and Laura Rickard from University of Maine, and then John Cannon from National Weather Service, and Abe Miller-Rushing, and the students of Kim and Laura. And they do have a website. Whoops. Okay. And so basically, the engagement activities are, training and sensor deployment, data retrieval, and data upload. They deploy a sensor in the field to record storm surge data and retrieve that data monthly and post those data to an online database, which I can give you that link as well. And they look at pre and post project activities, surveys, and optional interviews. So it's an in-person training that they provide. The video is available online for their training program. It's a monthly retrieval, and I've already said that, and maintenance of equipment. So it's fairly involved, actually. The equipment includes all of these things: the waterproof shuttle, the logger monitoring system, and it's, they get trained in all of this in person. Of course, it is online as well. So I'm not sure how they're handling it this year, if they have any new monitors. But this is a link to a really great article about the project. And then they have a dashboard with their data and reports, which is also really, really good information. I do know that when I was involved with it peripherally, going to a few of their meetings and trying to help support them in getting more funding from Sea Grant, it was in 2009 into 2019, I think, and they were talking about what had happened in Bangor in 2017. The data showed that they were that the surge that went from the coast, and that's our largest estuary, went all the way up to Bangor, which is just barely at the tide change. And so that was really interesting. And then that was in 2017, 2019, they found that it was more in the bay, the river so much. So it's interesting changes, and they're trying to do this mapping. Whoops. Yeah. Oh, I guess that's it. That's the project. Any questions? Say that real quickly that I have been very, very involved in volunteer monitoring started 33 years ago, and do pollution source tracking. It was called Clean Water Partners in Monitoring, and I partnered with the Maine Coastal Program, Kathleen Layden, and we even developed this program, and we went up to Canada and started their big monitoring program.
That's why we got you here.
And then we what's that?
That's why we asked you here.
Yeah. So anyway, so it goes on from there. It's still the DMR is still getting volunteer samples. We had labs set up. We had like 12 labs set up in high schools, and I did all the training. Anyway, I could go on and on about the many volunteer monitoring types of programs, but I'm here to talk about this one. This is our New England Phenology program, and Maine, New Hampshire, and one very large wildlife area in Massachusetts. So, which I won't talk about at all. People that are involved, we have great advisors and researchers involved, and a really good team. Okay, why isn't this let me? Okay, here we go. So we started in 2010. So we have 10 years of data to date after this season, and we have our objectives of filling the critical need for phenology data to better understand the biological effects of climate change, and to empower citizens to become part of this response, and ultimately to increase their climate literacy and engage them in participatory research. So we've trained. That's old number. We trained over 800 volunteers that are providing, not all of them, and we have a very extensive website with a lot of resources, webinars, etc. on it. So some elements of the program, and I really quickly did this because I've got a million different talks on this, but none of them that go to the points that I was asked for. So our training is 2.5 hours. We provide equipment. We have an online manual, as well as a 3-session training, online training that we did during COVID. And for this, okay, so there's 2 elements to signs of the seasons. We have terrestrial. We have 23 indicator species total, and we have 22 terrestrial. Well, loons are both, and then we have Ascophyllum nodosum, the rockweed that's ubiquitous in Maine and beyond. That is our coastal SOS program, and it has a different database than the other 22 species, which is the 22 species terrestrial part is with the National Phenology Network, very, very sophisticated database with a lot of ability to do data visualization. Our other database is Anecdata, which is with the biological MDI biological association, or anyway. So basically, Anecdata is a very user-friendly and is used not just in Maine but throughout the country. And we've only been doing the SOS, and the reason I'm the coastal SOS, the reason I'm focusing on that is because it's coastal. And Facebook resources, our website again is just has a lot of information on it. Our researchers and advisors for this coastal SOS is Jesse Mullen from Maine Maritime Academy, Abe Miller-Rushing from Acadia National Park, Ivan Fernandez from the UMaine Climate Change Institute, and many others, too numerous to mention. Okay. Oh, okay. And that's, those are, this is the Ascophyllum in its, in one of its phenophases. So I just have to put this in here because not everybody is familiar with Ascophyllum nodosum. It is an ubiquitous rockweed that's found all the way from Greenland all the way down through, I'm not sure exactly if it's Long Island Sound, I'm not sure, but anyway, it's found in many parts of the US and elsewhere. And it's really the engineer in the intertidal providing shelter food and temperature regulation. It even is a haul out for seals in Maine, and it produces oxygen, reduces carbon dioxide gas. It regulates seawater pH. And so it's really of great interest to a lot of people. And finally, it is, whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. Why is this happening this way? Hang on. I'm trying to, okay, hang on. Sorry, I couldn't see the bottom of my screen. Okay, so, oh no, okay. Anyway, there was a commercial, it's also commercially significant. So that's the big thing about using this as an indicator species, because we have a lot of harvesting of ascophyllum. It's used in, you know, so many things from dog food to compost. So it's very commercially significant, and it's becoming more so in Maine. So we're really looking at what the impacts might be. So there are other research projects going on in the intertidal, looking at the impact of harvesting on this intertidal foundational species. So that's also some of our research advisors doing that, and we've been able to provide that opportunity for our citizen scientists to go out and actually work in the field with these researchers. So the protocols for observing are fairly simple. And we do, all of this is, you know, out in the field. We do, like I said, a 2.5-hour training, and we provide manual and all of the water quality equipment and everything. It doesn't cost anything there's no fee for this program. And like I said, we have, you know, the fairly sophisticated database. It's also very user-friendly that they input their data into. So there's 3 procedures for this. One is looking at phenophase observations, or the life cycle changes based on timing due to climate change. And that is, so we train people how to note what phenophase they're in. And then the procedure B is water quality assessment. We do salinity and temperature at the site as close as you can get to the site that you're using. And procedure C is looking at age and growth measurements, which you can do through the bladders. You can count the bladders, and then you can also measure between the bladders for the growth rate. And this is just a photo of some of our volunteers in the field with the researchers looking at the quadrats study for figuring out, and that's in, I think they have 4 sites in different embayments that are, some of them currently being harvested and others not. And so they're looking at the growth rate and changes in phenology for those sites. And there's our website, and Beth Besson, who's the assistant director for Maine Sea Grant, and myself are co-coordinators.
All right, so these projects that I'm going to talk about are a little bit different, but it's great to have the opportunity to share them. And I'll just kind of give overviews of these projects, and if you have any questions or ideas, that would be great. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the King Tide Contest. This is a project run through the New Hampshire Coastal Adaptation Work Group, or CAW. And CAW is a collaborative group of over 25 organizations and entities, municipalities, working on climate adaptation in coastal New Hampshire. And we do a range of activities, like an annual climate summit, educational workshops. We have been doing an annual exchange with the Maine Climate Network, partnering with Esperanza. And since 2014, we've also been doing an annual King Tide photo contest. And the goals of this contest are really to kind of expand our engagement. Most of CAW's audience is traditionally dominated by municipal volunteer boards and staff, as well as some consultants. And we don't really have anything that expands much more broadly than that. So the contest really helps us engage more community members. A second goal is to raise awareness about the impacts of flooding that our communities are grappling with now. And it also gives us a preview of what future sea level rise impacts could look like in coastal New Hampshire. And so it's also a way for us to really document those impacts and capture some valuable, imagery content that we use, in outreach products and presentations and things like that. So we basically have a small planning team that's a subgroup of call members that has gotten together over the years to put this contest together, and it's really evolved. And so just to put it in a little geographic context, this is a map that we have on the website that shows like ideas for places to take photos. And so, a lot of the photos that we get are really from our Atlantic coast. But we are also trying to highlight the more inland impacts. These are all, we have 17 coastal zone communities. And so we do have, impacts around the Great Bay estuary and the tidal rivers. And so, trying to expand that. And so this map, you can click on the individual locations. It gives you some ideas of places to go look. And we just actually recently wrapped up our 2020 contest. And again, every year we're trying something different. We've done like thematic kind of categories in the past. This year we did more geographic. So Atlantic coast communities, Great Bay communities, trying to encourage more participation from those more inland towns. And then a creative category. We started getting more and more drone entries, which is awesome, but it was, it kind of was hard to compete for the non-drone images with those. So we kind of put that in a separate category, as well as, trying to open up to more creative options like videos, time-lapse videos, before and after comparisons. So it's really kind of an experiment every year and see what works. And so let's see, this year, and this just wrapped up like a week or so ago. This was the winning image for the Atlantic Coast category, the Great Bay category. This is in Durham, New Hampshire. And then the creative category. So this is like low tide, high tide comparison. And we also historically have convened a judges panel where we get, local stakeholders or elected officials to participate in judging the photos and selecting the winners. This year, we just did all people's choice and used a contest management platform to manage that. And in past years, we've also worked with local libraries, coffee shops, and other venues to display the top photos to kind of extend the reach and visibility. And I was trying to take a look at kind of our metrics for the contest over time. We've gotten better at tracking, the basic metrics like number of submissions and number of participants. And we're expanding those metrics, like seeing an increase in web traffic, social media followers and engagement, newsletter signups. We also have gotten a good amount of news coverage. And then we also engage businesses and restaurants for donating prizes. This year we purchased gift cards instead of asking for donations, just given the economic challenges. But just from a quick glance, kind of seeing like pretty stable submissions and participation. But this year with the public voting option, we had 400 unique voters participate in that. And so I think, every year we're trying something different, depending on the goals, we can kind of take it in different directions to increase engagement. So in terms of what's next, we'll probably continue to hold this annual contest. It's, a fair amount of effort for a short period of time, but with our team and having done it for several years now, we have a pretty good system in place. And then again, trying to keep encouraging more inland submissions, more creative submissions. I think we can improve our evaluation and tracking of the reach and try to follow up with participants, I think, because that's something we haven't really done. Is there a way to tap into that group of people who are participating in the contest and, see how we could maybe engage them further? And then kind of a thought in the back of my mind is there more that we can or should do with this from a mapping or data collection perspective? We really collect the images and we use them for reports and web and social media content, but that's kind of as far as we've taken it. And I think that we could potentially do more with that. So this is the link to the webpage. I can put that in the chat as well. But so that's the King Tide contest. So I'll pause, and if there are questions on that one before I get into the other projects. And again, pretty different kind of project, but we have done in this region a handful of art or sign related projects. And so I was going to talk about the 3 projects that we've done in recent years. The first 2, this is Dover, Durham, and then a few communities have these signs. I was involved with the first 2. This third one is one that a partner is doing. So I'll speak to that as best I can. The Dover Rising Waters Project, basically the city of Dover did a climate adaptation master plan chapter. And then, one of the actions in that chapter was to increase engagement and awareness and also connect with like a public art kind of component. And so an ad hoc group convened to implement, they wanted to do a youth art contest, and they put out a call for submissions. They raised funds to support materials and prize money, and resulted in this mural by 13-year-old Sophie Self, who designed this mural showing kind of a vision for the future of the city with rising seas. And this has since been installed on the exterior wall at the local children's museum and adjacent to the public pool. So a lot of visibility. We hosted mural launch events in partnership with the city, the museum, and Revision Energy, which was doing a solar project at the museum at the same time. So this was an image of the launch event with our local state senator, Senator Waters. We had a city councilor. So, great local representation and engagement. And again, kind of reaching a different audience than we typically do. We tried to have a hashtag associated with this and have people kind of post their thoughts, but it wasn't super successful. And then the group that put this together kind of dissipated after the contest, unfortunately. So, good project, had some potential, but sort of ended up fizzling out. The mural's still there, which is great. But that might be kind of a trend or a theme in the couple of projects that I'm talking about. The second one is called the Remembrance of Climate Futures Project. An artist from Northeastern University, Tom Starr, reached out to CAW and with this concept of basically installing markers that are along similar lines of like historic markers, like some such and such happened on such and such date in the past, but kind of making it a future climate change spin. And so, stating these either impacts like the UNH boathouse destroyed by storm surge during a hurricane, but it's, the date's 2032. And then, or an adaptation action like 100% renewable energy in 2040. And so, again, the similar goal of sort of sparking community conversation. They weren't exclusively sea level rise and flooding related, but there were several that were along those lines. He also implemented this in the towns of Essex and I believe Cambridge in Massachusetts. So you're sort of, doing this on a few regional levels. This is the town of Durham that we partnered with. They were on board with this kind of creative out there project. We worked with the town as a leadership team of different staff from all the departments, and worked with them to brainstorm different locations, different timeframes, different statements for the signs, like looking at a variety of climate impacts. And we helped them ground it in the local vulnerability assessments and research that had been done. So this was all generated by that steering team. And then Tom Starr, the artist, had funding to be able to manufacture these signs, and worked with the staff to install them at different locations. And so they all have a QR code on them, which takes you to, if you're on your phone, or you can go to this website on your computer, but if you just take a picture of the QR code, this website pops up that is specific to these signs. And so you can kind of scroll through, and it has the statement from the sign and the date and year. And then you can click on more, and a little bit more information comes up, and then it takes you to learn more about how Durham is addressing climate change. We worked with the town to develop a landing page with all their climate related resources and projects listed on there in one place. So, ultimately trying to get people thinking about the impacts, but also, have an avenue to drive them to learn more about what the town is doing. And again, try to hashtag, not super successful. And I also don't have any metrics for, like, are people actually looking at the signs and taking this route? So questionable success there. This is just a map of the locations in the town. Some pretty good press coverage at least. And I thought this was a nice quote. It's a good thing, at least we can say to our grandchildren that we did something, said Adam Perkins, a tow truck driver from Durham, was looking at one of the plaques. So, maybe some engagement, but I think there could be more of a push on that front. And then just briefly, the last project is these high watermark signs that have been done by the Rockingham Planning Commission in Seabrook, Hampton, Rye, and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And so they have this sign that provides a little information, and then on the kind of poles themselves, this is 2 feet of sea level rise, 4 feet of sea level rise, the current 100-year storm water depth, and then 6 feet of sea level rise. And these are just a couple examples of use of this hashtag. Seabrook's high water mark sign indicates that today's tide reached just below what 2 feet of sea level rise would look like, meaning this could be a normal high tide by 2050. And then these are some partners, New Hampshire Sea Grants Director, and other partners checking out the sign. So I think, people who are in the know might post about it or use the hashtag, but again, not sure how successful that's been more broadly. Next steps on this front, there's nothing planned. I think the Durham project has, that there could be like a school activity developed in conjunction with that one, maybe the others as well. But again, more questions, I think, than clear next steps, but how to really make these successful projects and better support more engagement, and again, tracking reach and impact. So I'm sorry, I probably went over my allotted time, but that is all that I have. I have the links to all those projects here. I can again put those in the chat as well.